I came home early and noticed my shampoo was almost gone. My husband said, "You're imagining things." My best friend texted, "Don't ruin your marriage over insecurity." Then I found her earring beside my bed, so I saved the footage. That was the moment my life split into before and after. I wish I could say I knew right away. I wish I had some sharp instinct that told me exactly what was happening. But I didn't. I stood in my bathroom, staring at that bottle, trying to make my brain choose any answer except the one sitting right in front of me. It was my shampoo. That sounds stupid, I know. But it was expensive, and I was the only one who used it. Jason always used whatever cheap bottle was in the shower. The kids had their own stuff. And Jennifer, my best friend, had joked about that shampoo more than once. She used to lean close when we hugged and say, "Your hair always smells like a spa." One day I'm stealing that bottle. I laughed when she said it. That Friday, I wasn't laughing. I had come home early because my youngest, Thomas, had a school activity canceled. My daughter, Hannah, was staying with a friend for a few hours, and Jason had said he would be working late. I remember opening the front door and getting that strange feeling immediately. Nothing was destroyed. Nothing was obviously wrong. The house was quiet and clean in a way that felt staged. There were 2 wine glasses in the sink. Jason didn't drink wine unless I opened a bottle. I told myself maybe he had 1 glass the night before and forgot. Then I saw the second glass and felt my chest tighten. The throw blanket on the couch was folded wrong. I always tossed it over the armrest because the kids used it constantly. That day, it was folded into a neat square, placed in the middle like someone had tried to reset the room from memory. I went upstairs. The bed was made, but not the way I made it. The pillows were stacked too high. The comforter was tucked too tightly on one side and hanging loose on the other. It was such a small thing, the kind of detail you sound insane explaining to another person. But when you live in a house long enough, you know when it feels wrong. I stood in the bedroom doorway and whispered, "What is going on?" Nobody answered. Then I went into the bathroom and saw the shampoo. Almost empty. I picked up the bottle and turned it in my hands, like maybe I was misreading it. I had bought it 2 weeks before. I used a small amount each time because I was cheap with expensive things. There was no reason for it to be that low. Then I saw one long strand of dark hair caught near the drain. My hair is lighter. Jennifer's was dark. I told myself to stop. I actually said it out loud. "Stop. You're being crazy." That was a sentence I had been trained to say for months. Jason had been different for a while. He wasn't angry all the time, just distant. He came home and went straight to his phone. He stopped asking about my day. When I talked, his eyes drifted away like he was waiting for me to finish. If I asked what was wrong, he said work was stressful. If I pushed, he said I was creating problems. And Jennifer kept backing him up without seeming like she was backing him up. She would sit with me at my kitchen table and say, "Marriage gets boring sometimes. That doesn't mean he's cheating." Or, "You're exhausted. Maybe everything feels worse because you're carrying too much." Or the one I heard in my head that Friday, "Don't blow up your marriage because you're insecure." I trusted her. That is the part that still makes me feel embarrassed. I trusted her because she knew things about me nobody else knew. She knew when I cried in the pantry because Jason forgot our anniversary. She knew when I felt ugly after having kids. She knew when I started sleeping at the edge of the bed because Jason stopped reaching for me. She knew every weak spot and still pressed on them. But I didn't know that yet. I left the bathroom and walked back into the bedroom. My hands were shaking, but my body felt oddly calm, like my mind had stepped away to protect itself. That was when I saw the earring. It was behind the nightstand on my side of the bed, half hidden near the wall. Small gold hoop, twisted design. I knew it before I picked it up. Jennifer owned a pair like that. She wore them constantly because she said they went with everything. I had complimented them before. She had touched one while laughing and said, "See, this is why I don't buy cheap jewelry. I'd lose my mind if I lost these." I crouched down and picked it up. For a few seconds, I just stared at it in my palm. A normal person would call her husband. A normal person would maybe scream. I didn't either. I sat on the bedroom floor with my back against the bed and held that earring like it was hot. My phone buzzed. It was Jason. "Running late. Don't wait up for dinner." I looked at the message, then looked at the earring, and something inside me went very still. I typed okay. That was it. I did not confront him that night. When he came home, he kissed the top of my head like he was checking a box. I asked him, as calmly as I could, if anyone had been over that day. He frowned at his phone. "No." "Why?" The house felt different. He looked up then. Not guilty exactly. Irritated. Different how? I don't know. Just different. He gave this tired little laugh. Sarah, I'm not doing this tonight. Doing what? This thing where you decide something is wrong and I have to defend myself against a feeling. That line almost worked. It almost made me fold into myself and apologize. Instead, I asked, so nobody was here? He stared at me for a second too long. No. I nodded. Then I went upstairs, locked myself in the bathroom, and texted Jennifer a picture of the earring. Is this yours? She didn't answer. I watched those 3 little dots appear, disappear, appear again, then vanish completely. I sat on the toilet lid with my phone in my hand, breathing so quietly I could hear Jason moving around downstairs. 2 hours later, she replied. Oh my God, yes. I must have lost it when I came over last week. I read it 3 times. She had not been over last week. The last time she had been at my house, at least officially, was almost 3 weeks earlier. We had coffee in the kitchen while Jason was supposedly at work. She never went upstairs. She never used my bathroom. She definitely did not take off an earring behind my nightstand. I typed, right? I forgot. Then I put the phone down and felt something harden in me. Not anger. Not yet. It was clarity. For months, I had been walking around with fog inside my chest, blaming myself for not being enough. I thought maybe I had become boring. I thought maybe motherhood had swallowed too much of me. I thought maybe Jason missed the version of me who had more energy, and maybe Jennifer was right that I was seeing rejection everywhere because I was tired. But sitting there with her light glowing on my phone, I realized I was not tired. I was being handled. The next few days were some of the strangest of my life. I still packed lunches. I still asked Hannah about school. I still helped Thomas find his missing sneaker. I still lay beside Jason while he breathed evenly like he had no idea the floor under him was cracking. I started checking things. Maybe in a healthy marriage, you do not look at phone records or doorbell history or credit card charges. But mine was not healthy anymore. Mine had become a room where 2 people were lying and one person was being told she was paranoid for noticing the smoke. The phone records showed calls. So many calls. Short ones at first. 10 minutes here. 6 minutes there. Then longer ones. Late at night. During Jason's lunch breaks. Once, while I was at my mother's house helping her after a medical appointment. The credit card charges were small, but they formed a pattern. A bottle of wine from the store near our house. Takeout from a place Jason swore he hated. Gas station stops near Jennifer's neighborhood. Then I checked the doorbell footage. I had forgotten about it at first, because Jason usually entered through the garage. Jennifer usually came through the front when she visited me. But that Friday, the camera caught her walking up our front path at 12:43 p.m. She was wearing sunglasses and carrying a tote bag. Jason opened the door before she could ring. He looked outside quickly, then smiled. Not the polite smile he gave delivery drivers. Not the exhausted smile he gave me when he wanted a conversation to end. It was the old smile. The one I used to get when we were younger and he saw me across a crowded room. He stepped aside. She walked in. The door closed. She left at 2:18 p.m. Her hair was damp. I watched that clip until I felt sick. Then I saved it. I saved everything. The earring photo. The texts. The footage. Screenshots of the call logs. Receipts. Dates. Times. I made a folder with a boring name and sent a copy to a new email account Jason didn't know about. Then I called my sister Emily. She answered on the second ring and said, "What's wrong?" I had not said anything yet. That is how you know someone actually knows you. I said, "I need you to not react until I finish." She went quiet. I told her enough. Not everything. I couldn't say everything out loud yet. I told her I thought Jason was cheating and I had proof, and I needed somewhere safe to keep documents in case things got ugly. She said, "Bring them here. No drama. No questions. Just that." So I gathered birth certificates, bank papers, insurance documents, a few things from the safe, and some cash I had hidden in an envelope after one of Jason's colder months when I didn't know why I felt like I needed an exit plan. Emily took the folder and hugged me in her doorway. I didn't cry until she said, "You're not crazy." That was what I needed most. Not revenge. Not a perfect plan. Just someone saying the words Jason and Jennifer had spent months stealing from me. You're not crazy. A few days later, I found the messages. Jason had an old tablet in the drawer of his nightstand. He used to watch videos on it, but lately it just sat there. I don't know why I checked it. Maybe because once you find one crack, you start looking for the wall to collapse. It was still connected to his account. Their messages were there. Some were boring. Memes. Complaints. Plans. Then they got cruel. Jason wrote, "She doesn't even look at me anymore unless she needs something." Jennifer replied, "Because she's forgotten how to be anything except a mom." He wrote, "I feel invisible in my own house." She wrote, "You deserve to feel wanted." There were messages about me being cold, about me being controlling, about how I always seem tired. One from Jennifer said, "She's not a bad person, but she drains every room she's in." That one hurt more than I expected, because I had told her I was afraid I had become that. I had sat across from her, embarrassed and raw, and asked, "Do you think I'm hard to love now?" She had reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "No, babe. You're just overwhelmed." Then she went home and told my husband I drained every room. I took screenshots until my phone storage warned me. Then I sat in the dark bedroom, listening to Jason laugh at something downstairs, and realized I could not live inside the lie for much longer. But I also knew I could not rush. I needed a lawyer. I needed a plan. I needed my kids protected from whatever Jason might become once he realized I was not going to beg. The lawyer's name was Rebecca. I found her through someone Emily trusted. Her office was small and quiet, and she spoke to me like I was a person, not a case file. She looked through the timeline I had made and said, "You've been careful." I said, "I feel disgusting." She paused, then said, "You were trying to find the truth in your own marriage. That is not the same as trying to destroy someone." I wanted to believe her. I opened a separate bank account. I changed passwords. I took pictures of valuables. I made copies of paperwork. I started sleeping with my phone under my pillow like that would somehow keep the world from getting worse. Meanwhile, Jason got nicer. That was almost worse. He brought home flowers one night. Grocery store flowers, still wrapped in plastic, but flowers. He said, "I know I've been stressed lately." I looked at him across the kitchen island and wondered if guilt had a smell. I said, "Stressed about what?" He shrugged. "Everything. Work. Money. Us. Us." He looked at me like I was supposed to rescue him from the conversation. "Yeah, we haven't been good." I thought about the messages. I thought about Jennifer in my shower. I thought about him opening our front door for her while I was away. I said, "What do you think is wrong with us?" He rubbed his face. "I don't know. Sometimes I feel like you don't see me." I almost laughed. Instead, I said, "Maybe I've been looking right at you and you just didn't like being seen." He went still. For 1 second, I thought he knew. Then Thomas came into the kitchen asking for help with homework, and the moment passed. 2 days later, I invited Jennifer over. I did it by text because I knew if I called her, she would hear something in my voice. "Can you come by Friday? I really need to talk." She replied almost immediately. "Of course." What happened? I stared at that message for a long time. What happened? She happened. He happened. They happened in my house, in my bed, in the quiet spaces where I thought my life was safe. I wrote, "Just marriage stuff." She sent a heart. That was the moment I decided I wanted her to lie to my face one last time. Not because I needed proof. I had proof. I wanted to see if there was any piece of the person I loved still inside her. Any hesitation. Any shame. Friday came. I dropped the kids at Emily's after school and told them they were having a cousin night. Hannah asked why I looked weird. I told her I had a headache. That was not entirely a lie. Then I came home, put the earring in a small dish on the kitchen table, and waited. Jennifer arrived with coffee. She walked in smiling like she had not walked through that same doorway 2 weeks earlier to sleep with my husband. She hugged me. Actually hugged me. Her perfume hit me first, then her hair, and for one horrible second I remembered every time that hug had comforted me. After my dad died. After Jason forgot my birthday, and I pretended I didn't care. After I cried about my marriage while she pretended she was helping me save it. She pulled back and said, "You look exhausted, babe." I looked at her coffee cup. Then at her face. And I said, "Are you sleeping with my husband?" Her smile disappeared instantly. "What?" I said it again. "Are you sleeping with my husband?" She blinked at me, and I watched the performance begin. First confusion. Then hurt. Then offense. "Sarah, are you serious right now?" I pushed the dish across the table. The earring slid slightly against the ceramic. Jennifer looked down. For the first time since she arrived, she had nothing ready to say. Jennifer stared at the earring like it had betrayed her. That was the strange part. Not shame. Not fear at first. She looked annoyed, like some tiny careless object had ruined the story she and Jason had been telling themselves. Then her face crumpled. "Sarah," she whispered. I sat across from her and waited. She reached for the earring, but I moved the dish back before she could touch it. Her hand froze in the air. "I can explain," she said. That sentence made something bitter rise in my throat. "Then explain." She looked toward the hallway, then back at me. "It wasn't supposed to happen." I nodded once. "That's not an explanation." She started crying. Softly at first, like she was trying to make the room feel sorry for her. I had seen her cry before. Real tears. Grief tears. Angry tears. This was different. These tears kept pausing so she could check my face. "He told me things were basically over between you," she said. I felt my fingers press into my own knees under the table. "And you believed him?" She swallowed. "You were unhappy too." I stared at her. That was the first thing she said that truly shocked me. Not because it was untrue. I had been unhappy. I had told her that. I had cried into her coffee mugs and said I felt like my husband had left me emotionally but forgotten to move out. But she said it like my sadness had been permission. "I came to you because I trusted you," I said. She wiped her face. "I know. No, you don't. Because if you knew, you wouldn't be sitting here acting like my pain was a door you accidentally walked through." Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. I took my phone and placed it on the table. I didn't play the footage. I just let the screen light up with the paused image of her standing on my front porch. Her face went pale. I said, "Your hair was wet when you left." She covered her mouth and started sobbing. I thought seeing her break would give me something. It didn't. It only made the kitchen feel smaller, sadder, dirtier. She kept saying she was sorry. She said Jason made her feel special during a hard time in her own marriage. She said she never meant for it to go that far. She said she loved me. That was when I laughed. Not loud. Not cruel. Just once, because my body didn't know what else to do with that sentence. "You loved me." "I do," she said, desperate now. "You're my best friend." I looked at the chair she was sitting in. That was the same chair she had sat in 3 months earlier when I told her I was scared Jason didn't want me anymore. She had reached across the table and told me I was beautiful. She had told me I deserved patience. She had told me not to assume the worst. Then she had walked upstairs with him. I said, "You don't get to call yourself my best friend anymore." She flinched like I had slapped her. My phone buzzed. Jason. He was on his way home. I had texted him 30 minutes earlier and said the kids were with Emily and he needed to come home right after work. I didn't tell him why. Jennifer saw his name on the screen and panicked. "You called him." I texted him. "Sarah, please don't do this like this." I looked at her carefully. "Like what?" She shook her head, crying harder. "This will ruin everything." I leaned forward. "What exactly did you think would happen?" She didn't answer. Jason came in through the garage 15 minutes later. I heard the door open. I heard him set down his keys. I heard the small pause when he saw Jennifer's car outside, probably wondering if this was a trap. Then he walked into the kitchen. His eyes moved from me to Jennifer to the earring on the table. For 1 second, nobody spoke. Then he said, "What is this?" Not, "I'm sorry." Not Sarah. Just, "What is this?" Like he was offended by the inconvenience of being caught. Jennifer stood up, wiping her face. "Jason, she knows." He looked at her so sharply that I almost missed it. Anger. Not at himself. At her. Then he turned to me and said, "This isn't what you think." I laughed again, but this time it hurt. "That's amazing," I said. "Because it is exactly what I think." He dragged both hands through his hair. "Can we talk without her here?" "No." "Sarah." "No. She was comfortable being in my house when I wasn't here. She can be here now." Jennifer sat back down slowly. Jason's face changed. He looked tired. Cornered. Then he tried the soft voice. The one he used when he wanted to make me feel unreasonable. "I know this looks bad." I said, "It is bad." It got complicated. That is what people say when they don't want to say they made choices. His jaw tightened. Then came the speech. He said he had been lonely. He said he felt invisible. He said he didn't know how to talk to me anymore. He said Jennifer understood things I didn't. He said it was emotional before it was physical, like that was supposed to make me grateful. I listened. I think he expected me to interrupt or cry or give him a version of me he could use later. But I had already done my crying in private. Not all of it. There would be more. But not for him in that kitchen. When he finished, I asked, "Did you bring her into our bed?" He looked away. Jennifer whispered, "Sarah." I raised my hand without looking at her. Jason said, "Yes." The word landed quietly. That almost made it worse. I asked, "Did you use our shower?" Jennifer started crying again. Jason said, "This is not helping." I stood up then. "What would help, Jason?" Should I make coffee? Should I ask Jennifer if she wants the shampoo she liked so much? Should I thank both of you for making me feel crazy in my own house? His face went red. You're making it ugly. I looked at him for a long second. You made it ugly when you brought her into the place where our children sleep. He had no answer for that. The conversation broke apart after that. Jennifer begged me not to tell her husband yet. Jason told her to stop talking. That told me more than any confession could have. I said, Andrew deserves to know. Jennifer shook her head. Please. He'll take our son. I said, maybe you should have thought about your son before you walked into my house. She said I was being cruel. Maybe I was. But cruelty is a strange word when it comes from someone who smiled at your children while betraying their mother. I told them both to leave the kitchen. Jennifer left first. Jason followed her to the front door, whispering something I couldn't hear. I watched through the window as she got into her car and sat there crying before driving away. Jason came back inside and said, we need to be smart about this. That sentence did something to me. He sighed. For the kids. There it was. The shield. The one people grab when they have no defense left. For the kids. I said, the kids are why I'm not screaming. He looked relieved for half a second, like he mistook my control for weakness. Then I said, I've already spoken to a lawyer. His face changed. What? I've spoken to a lawyer. I have copies of everything. The footage. The messages. The call logs. I'm not discussing divorce terms with you in the kitchen. He stared at me like I had become someone else. Maybe I had. He said, you planned this. I said, no. You planned this. I prepared for it. That night, Jason slept in the guest room. I don't think either of us slept much. I heard him walking around after midnight, opening drawers, closing cabinets, probably realizing I had already taken the important documents. The next morning, he tried again. He made coffee. He stood in the doorway while I packed the kids' lunches and said, I don't want to lose my family. I kept spreading peanut butter on bread. He said, Sarah, please. I looked at him then. You didn't lose us. You put us down somewhere and hoped we wouldn't notice. His eyes filled with tears. A month earlier, that would have destroyed me. I would have rushed to comfort him because I hated seeing him hurt. That morning, I looked away and put grapes into Hannah's lunchbox. After the kids left for school, I sent Andrew the proof. Not all of it. Just enough that he would know I wasn't guessing. A screenshot of Jennifer's message about the earring. The doorbell clip. A few messages between her and Jason that made the affair clear. I wrote, I'm sorry. I found out this week. You deserve to know. I won't contact you again unless you need the full timeline. Then I pressed send. My hands shook afterward. I knew people would judge that part. Some would say I should have waited. That it was not my marriage to blow up. That Andrew had a child too, and I had no right to throw a grenade into his home. But Jennifer had been in my home. Jason had been in my marriage. They made choices inside lives that were not only theirs. Andrew called me 20 minutes later. I didn't answer. Then he texted. Is this real? I stared at the screen and felt my throat close. I replied, yes. I'm sorry. He wrote back, how long? I sent him the timeline. After that, everything moved fast. Jennifer called me 17 times. Then she texted. How could you do this to my family? I almost replied. I had the words ready. I wanted to ask her what she thought she had done to mine. I wanted to ask if my children mattered when she walked past their school drawings on the fridge. I wanted to ask if she thought friendship meant holding my hand while hiding a knife behind her back. But Rebecca had told me not to get pulled into emotional fights. So I wrote one sentence. Do not contact me again unless it is through attorneys. Then I blocked her. Jason exploded when he found out I told Andrew. Not in front of the kids. I will give him that. He waited until they were at Emily's again, then paced the living room like I had betrayed him. You had no right, he said. I stood near the fireplace with my arms folded. He had every right to know. You did it to punish her. I did it because he was being lied to. Jason scoffed. Don't act noble. That one landed. Because he was not entirely wrong. There was anger in it. Of course there was. I wanted the truth to hurt them because the lie had hurt me quietly for months. I wanted Jennifer's husband to look at her the way I had looked at Jason. I wanted the secret to stop being beautiful for them. But I also knew that if Andrew found out and learned I had kept it from him, I would have become another person who let him live inside a lie. I said, maybe I did want her punished. That doesn't make the truth less true. He had nothing to say to that. The divorce started ugly and then became boring in the way legal things become boring. Forms. Emails. Dates. Lists of furniture. Questions about custody. Numbers on paper that were supposed to measure the collapse of a life. Jason wanted to keep the house at first. That almost made me laugh. He said it would be better for the kids to have stability. Rebecca asked how he planned to afford it alone. He stopped pushing so hard after that. I stayed in the house temporarily because the kids needed routine and because Jason was the one who had somewhere else to go. He moved into a small apartment with beige walls and rented furniture. The first time the kids came home from visiting him there, Thomas said, "Dad's place smells like cardboard." I went into the laundry room and cried into a towel where nobody could see. Not because I wanted Jason back. Because my son should not have had to learn what a temporary life smelled like. Our friend group split exactly the way you would expect. Some people disappeared because they didn't know what to say. Some chose sides loudly. Amanda, who had always been closer to Jennifer, sent me a long message saying she was sorry for what happened, but thought I went too far by telling Andrew so quickly. I read that message twice. Then I replied, what would have been the respectful waiting period for telling a husband his wife was sleeping with mine? She didn't answer. A few days later, I heard that Jennifer was saying Jason had manipulated her. That she had been lonely. That I had ignored her struggles. That I was punishing her because it was easier than facing the problems in my own marriage. Jason started telling people our marriage had been dead for years. That I was cold. That I had checked out. That he made a mistake, but I was using it to destroy him. He left out the part where he brought my best friend into our bed. People usually leave out the part that makes the story simple. I stopped defending myself to everyone. Not because I was above it. I wasn't. I wanted to send screenshots to every person who looked at me sideways. I wanted to make a folder called Before You Judge Me and attach it to every fake concerned message. But I had kids watching me. So I told the truth when it mattered and stayed quiet when it didn't. Andrew and I met once, about 6 weeks after I sent him the proof. He asked if we could talk in a public place. I chose a coffee shop. I got there early and sat in the corner with my hands wrapped around a cup I never drank from. He looked exhausted when he came in. I had only met him a handful of times before. Birthday parties. Cookouts. Casual things. He was always polite, quieter than Jennifer. That day, he looked like someone had aged overnight. He sat down and said, "I'm sorry." I shook my head. "You don't owe me that." He looked at the table. "I keep thinking about all the times she said she was going to your house." My stomach twisted. I said, "I keep thinking about all the times she was already there." We sat in silence after that. There is a strange comfort in sitting with someone who knows the shape of the betrayal without needing it explained. We were not friends. We were not allies in some dramatic way. We were just two people standing in the wreckage of the same lie from opposite sides. He told me he had filed for separation. I told him I was sorry. He gave a tired laugh and said, "Everyone keeps saying that." I understood what he meant. Sorry becomes a small word when the damage is that big. Before we left, he said, "For what it's worth, I'm glad you told me." I held on to that later when people made me feel like I had done something dirty. The weirdest part of all of it was that Jason and Jennifer did not end up together. You would think after blowing up 2 families, they would at least try to make the love story worth the wreckage. But once there were no secret lunches, no stolen afternoons, no thrill of being chosen in the dark, they fell apart almost immediately. Jason told me during one custody exchange that Jennifer was unstable. I looked at him and said, "That's not my problem anymore." He blinked, like he was not used to me handing his drama back to him. Jennifer moved in with her mother a few months later. I only know because Amanda told Emily, and Emily asked if I wanted to hear it. Andrew kept the house for their son, at least for now. Jason's apartment became more permanent than he expected. The kids adjusted, though not perfectly. Hannah got quiet for a while. Thomas asked if divorce meant we stopped being a family. I told him families change shape, but love does not disappear just because people move into different houses. I hope that was true enough. 8 months have passed. The house feels different now. At first, every room had a memory hiding in it. The kitchen was where Jennifer cried. The hallway was where Jason followed me, begging me not to make things worse. The bedroom was the place I could barely enter without seeing the earring in my mind. So I changed what I could. I moved the bed to the other wall. I bought new sheets. I painted the bathroom myself one weekend while the kids were with Jason. I threw away the shampoo bottle, then bought the same brand again because I refused to let them take one more small thing from me. That probably sounds petty. Maybe it was. But the first night I washed my hair and smelled rosemary and mint without feeling sick, I stood in the shower and cried from relief. I am not healed in some clean, movie-ending way. I still get angry at weird times. Sometimes I miss who I thought Jennifer was, then remember there is no version of us to go back to. Losing Jason hurt. Losing her confused me. Because when a husband betrays you, people understand the category. They know where to put that pain. But when your best friend betrays you, it makes you question your own judgment. She knew my fears and used them like a map. She knew when I was weak. She knew exactly how to make me doubt what I was seeing. That is the part 1 I'm still working through. Last week, Jason asked if we could start fresh as friends. He said it would be better for the kids if we could have dinner together sometimes. He said he missed talking to me. He said he knew he ruined everything, but he hoped one day I would remember that he was not only the worst thing he had done. A year ago, I would have softened. This time, I said, we can be respectful parents. That is all I have for you. He looked hurt, but he nodded. 2 days later, an email came from Jennifer. I do not know how she got around the block. Maybe a new address. Maybe one she had always had. The subject line was, I miss my best friend. I stared at it for a long time before opening it. She wrote that she thinks about me every day. That she knows she destroyed something sacred. That she was selfish and weak and desperate to feel wanted. She said she hopes one day I can forgive her, not because she deserves it, but because we both lost so much. That line sat in my chest like a stone. We both lost so much. As if we had been standing in the same fire. As if she had not helped light it. I deleted the email. Then I emptied the trash folder, so I would not go back and reread it when I felt lonely. That was my calm victory, I guess. Not ruining her online. Not screaming in public. Not chasing every rumor. Just deleting the message and making dinner while my kids argued over who got the bigger piece of garlic bread. Later that night, after they were asleep, I sat in the bathroom with the door closed. The new paint still smelled faintly fresh. My shampoo bottle sat on the shelf, full and untouched. For the first time in a long time, my house felt like mine again. Not perfect. Not unbroken. Just mine. I know some people will say I should forgive them eventually. Maybe they are right. Maybe forgiveness is supposed to be this beautiful thing that frees you. But right now, the only freedom I understand is not letting people who broke my trust keep access to my heart. I did not destroy 2 families. I exposed the truth inside them. And maybe that is the part people argue about, because truth can look cruel when everyone was more comfortable with the lie. So am I wrong for sending the proof to her husband and refusing to forgive either of them? Or did they lose the right to ask for grace when they brought the affair into my home?